This is Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman. And you're listening to the DCAU Review, hosted by Cal and Liam, streaming at DCAUreview.com and on your favorite podcast app.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 371 of the DCAU Review. I am one of your hosts, Cal, and with me, my good friend and brother, Liam, our other host. Liam, we are here, new month. We started off last week, the new month off last week, at least the original time of recording, with a very cool character spotlight of the King of Atlantis, King of the Ocean, Aquaman. Last week we talked a lot about him, shined the old DCAU character spotlight directly on him, and gave him a spotlight chance for an interesting character. But this week we are back to reviewing new content, new episodes of the DCAU, and we are here reviewing Static Shock, the show that features a character named Static, not Static Shock, as is often confusing and people online are unsure about. But Static, actually pretty exciting, had a recent announcement back in the news again, as he's coming back to DC, the DC universe proper, in a very exciting crossover with another character that originated in the DC animated universe for a pretty cool miniseries. So what a time to kick it off and talk a little bit about Static this month as we return here to the sunny skies of Dakota.
That's right. And as is becoming a theme on our show, we're quickly running out of original Static reviews to cover. We are deep into the fourth season. We have one or two that we've held back maybe for future theme months, but yeah, we are well into the fourth and final season here, and have, I think, probably one of this season's most memorable episodes to talk about today, that being Where the Rubber Meets the Road.
That's right, Liam. We got the return of Rubber Band Man, as well as, that's right, the main antagonist of the entire Static Shock series makes a cameo in this episode. Very excited to talk about that.
So excited.
We're going to talk all about it as we get into this week's review. Before we do, we will, of course, get the official IMDb synopsis for this week's episode, which originally aired here in the United States back on March the 27th, 2004. Saturday morning on the Kids WB programming block. Liam, before we get the official IMDb synopsis, I'll remind the good folks at home the best way to support our podcast is buymeacoffee.com/DCAU review. Buymeacoffee.com/DCAU review, where you can become a one-time supporter of the podcast or a monthly supporter of the podcast. You know what's great about that? You got different options, different reasons to support the podcast. Liam, we once again are being bribed. We had a very special support last week from frequent bribery contributor Lorenzo, who really wants us to do a character spotlight for Lana Lang. I don't know if we have enough content for old Lana to do a spotlight episode, but you know what? You at least have us here scrounging around looking, Lorenzo. That $1 that you sent our way, being a one-time supporter, really, it's a one-time support option, not a recurring support option. But he's a multi-time supporter of the podcast here, so he's influencing his way. He's influencing the influencer, so to speak. He went over to buymeacoffee.com/DCAU review and became a one-time supporter of the podcast. Or perhaps you'd like to be like one of our other monthly supporters of the podcast that join us at one of our 3 levels of support. If you join us at any of those levels of monthly support, you get some perks that come with it, including our top tier super friend tier, which gets you the opportunity to ask us a question about the episode that we're reviewing that week and hear your question answered here on the air by the both of us. We enjoy doing that each and every week because we usually get either a super nerdy in-depth, like nerds of a question, or something that we just never thought about before. Either way, it gets the wheels turning, it gets us talking, and it's one of my favorite things that we have here. So if you're interested in joining us at one of those tiers, influencing us perhaps on our next spotlight episode like Lorenzo, or hey, maybe you want to become a monthly supporter of the podcast and ask us a question and hear it answered on the air, head over to buymeacoffee.com/DCAU review and support the podcast today.
Absolutely. So this is the synopsis for Where the Rubber Meets the Road, which is written by Matt Wayne, directed by Chuck Drost, with music by Max Gauss and Derek Thornton, and animation by Coco and Dong Yang. And that synopsis reads as such. Specs and Trapper steal a fusion reactor from Alva. Rubber Band Man joins Static and Gear to get it back before bad things can happen.
Well, on a technicality, yes, they're responsible for the reactor being stolen, but they don't steal it. It's a pretty big portion of the whole thing. It's also kind of a bit of a spoiler that they're the ones behind it, because we don't get that reveal midway through. So feels like you read the back of the book, or maybe the Cliff Notes version, and then wrote your report based on that. So either way, IMDb synopsis author, please see us after class, because we need to discuss something with your parents. But Liam will get into our own synopsis. Perhaps we can do a better job at doing so. But we open things up here with one of my favorite tropes of all time when it comes to characters. They're just laying down, having fun. Our two heroes, we see Virgil and Richie hanging out together, and they're playing PlayStation. I'm sorry, Game Station 2 together. They're playing a racing game. They're having fun. And I love this because Richie does the thing that every one of your friends has ever done the moment that they start losing in a video game.
Jeff Gordon can stay home tonight, folks. Virgil Speed Demon Hawkins is burning up the track. But Richie Crash Test Dummy Foley is one tough competitor. Oh, friends, this is not great. Oh, dude, come on. Your controller's like brand new. You called the other one.
That's Sharon.
I didn't hook up a tester. I just said that one. This thing's a dud. Hey, Adam, I got a proposition. You like my sister. I like your game station, too. Let's do some business.
Quit playing, Virgil. I'm upstairs, baby.
Quit playing? Hey, what I lack in maturity, I make up for in immaturity.
Classic. That's a classic, sleepover or, brothers or siblings of any kind. Yeah, this is almost anyone that's played PlayStation with any kind of co-op game over the years has had this exact argument at some point.
Somehow there's always a controller that's better than the other one. And, the person that loses, regardless of whether they're player 1 or player 2, they have the crappier controllers. The controller's fault. Blame that or blame the AI, one or the other. It's never the skill level of the person operating the controller. Blame the hardware. The hardware certainly can't fight back. But as Virgil continues to very clearly whip up on Richie, we learn that we are actually at Adam Evans, aka Rubber Band Man's apartment. They are using his game station to play around, and we see that Adam and Sharon, Virgil's sister, of course, are about to go on a date. After an awkward conversation where it sounds like Virgil is trying to pimp out his sister in exchange for the use of the game station, we just move along from that. And Adam says that Richie and Virgil can hang around and play game station as long as they want to. He and Sharon are off for their very fancy dinner date. So Sharon and Adam decide to go out. They're going out to eat, and in the meantime, Richie and Virgil continue on. Virgil insists that they continue playing. Richie says he's not going to play until he can use the better controller to prove Virgil that it is indeed the controller that's at fault. Virgil does not want to give up the controller, so Richie says he's going on strike, and he's going to do so by spending his time looking around, trying to find things in Adam's apartment to read. He looks around and, despite there being a book directly in front of him, claims that there are no books to read anywhere. And instead decides he's going to go through Adam's mail. It's not clear here whether or not he commits a federal offense by opening Adam's mail, but they do indicate, at least initially here, that he's interested in reading Adam's mail, but notes that none of the letters on the table that appear to be fan mail from his adoring fans of people in Dakota that are big fans of Rubber Band Man, or perhaps him as a musical artist, as we are reminded later on. None of the letters are opened, and they look around, and there's a gigantic cartoonishly large mail bag also full of mail that has also not been opened. So they both kind of think that that's weird. But then also mention that maybe they're missing something, and that maybe there's opened mail someplace else. So we cut back across town where Adam and Sharon are sitting outdoors on a patio enjoying the restaurant. And we get the first indication of perhaps why none of this mail has been opened and read, as we see that Sharon is looking at the menu, deciding what she's going to order. And it's one of those fancy restaurants where there's no pictures on the menu. So it's all words, and she's reading through it. And as she's trying to decide, we see that Adam is also looking at the menu, and we see from his POV vision, the words on the paper are extremely scrambled and illegible. He's not quite able to determine what's on the menu. Sharon asks what he's going to get for dinner, and he says, whatever you're having, I'll just order the same thing. As a cover, because it's very clear at this point that there's something wrong. He's not quite able to read for whatever reason, but he's not willing to share that with Sharon at that time. So we see that while Sharon chalks it up to him being sweet and plays it off, Adam kind of is able to avoid the conversation at that point, why he's not willing to select his own meal at that time. We then cut across town to Alva Industries, where we see a bunch of guards patrolling this Alva Industries complex. And we see a Bang Baby. I don't think we've seen this guy before, right? This is his Bang Baby debut here. This fella who announces later on that his name is Tarmac. He walks right through the fence. He passes through this wrought iron gate. It passes through him, I should say, as he walks through, and then he's able to continue to make his way inside, blowing up a electrical box, and then blowing a hole in the side of the building. This, of course, triggers a whole bunch of alarms, and Edwin Alva is quickly alerted of the intruder, and notes that he's concerned that it could be an attack on the entire facility. He then calls on his security to deploy the defense bots and to attack this intruder. Tarmac continues his advancement through the different various defenses, and Alva insists that they do everything and anything they can to stop him. Meanwhile, he's continuing to advance, getting all the way through to one of the labs, and he begins creating a lot of destruction as a lot of soldiers begin showing up, and they do kind of disperse these robots that are quickly dispersed with. And then we see Alva is still continuing to watch everything going on. He then offers to pay whoever can stop this guy a bounty in order to stop him from continuing his onslaught and attack of the Alva Industries laboratory. We cut back across town where Sharon and Adam are enjoying their dinner, and we suddenly see as they go to toast their dinner, a large crash happens, and they see the gigantic screens that are showing across the street are live broadcasting the attack on Alva Industries. And unfortunately, there's no sound, so there's not really any ability to tell what's going on or where it is other than the crawl that's coming across the bottom of the screen. And Adam asks Sharon to read the bottom of the screen to tell him where the attack is happening.
To Sharon Hawkins, who every day makes me feel like a superhero.
Adam, you make corny stuff seem so right.
What's that?
Hey, that's Alva Industries.
Sharon, what's it say at the bottom of the screen?
Huh?
There's a glare from this angle. What does it say?
Live from Alva Industries Complex, massive destruction by unidentified Bang Baby.
I have to go. I'm needed.
Wow, that's
corny, but I like it.
We then cut back to the we cut back to the lab where the guards are doing their best, firing all of their heavy armory at this Tarmac character who introduces himself as the living chunk of the biggest, baddest road you'll ever drive on. And he breaks into the lab, and we now learn, Liam, what he's after. It's the gigantic fusion engine, which sounds like it could have come from any comic book in any era and any time, or any comic book movie. Just descriptive enough to be some sort of odd invention that creates some sort of havoc and should not be in the hands of bad guys.
That's right. So as he first grabs hold of not only the fusion engine, but Tarmac is apparently going to take Edwin Alva hostage as with him as he begins to leave the facility. But that's when Rubber Band Man arrives, and Static and Gear are not far behind either. And they engage in some battle with this guy who is because of his weird. He's basically Magma from that Batman Beyond episode we just talked about, but he can also like shapeshift. So he's pretty formidable to our foes. And as Rubber Band Man tries to wrap him up, he heats up his body and begins to burn Rubber Band Man, so he has to let him go. And as he begins to make a run for it with the fusion engine in tow, Alva instructs Rubber Band Man to hit the emergency override switch that will lock down the building and keep him from escaping. However, that doesn't really work because, again, there seems to be some issue when Adam goes to look at the console where he can't make out what the words are saying on the screen. Gear eventually runs up all frustrated and slams the button down, but it's a little too late. We're shutting end up being more of a hindrance to Static than to Tarmac, who escapes. And we see that cut to the next day, or actually before we cut away, we get Alva kind of reading Rubber Band Man the riot act.
You elastic buffoon! Do you realize what your hesitation has cost me?
What did Tarmac take?
A fusion engine.
A fusion engine? What's it do?
It generates power. Power enough to wipe out the city.
Why are you making that? I don't know. But
because the episode has to happen.
That's it. There needs to be a ticking clock and a big boom at the end if our heroes aren't good, I guess. But so yes, we cut then to Tarmac meeting back up with his benefactors, the aforementioned Specs and Trapper, returning here. I feel like these guys tip their hand because they won't stop. Every time they're always trying to mess with Alva stuff. Like these guys seem pretty just build an engine themselves, but I guess it's easier to maybe it's a time thing. So
Alva had to get a license.
Do build themselves.
Alva had to get a license to build it, so maybe they just didn't want to go through all the red tape and regulatory issues of getting through the bureaucracy of building their own one. You know,
maybe one of the things on the questionnaire when you apply for it is like, have you tried to murder Static Shock and/or a well-known businessman in the community? And if you answer yes to that, you don't get approved. Maybe that's part of the problem.
That sounds about right.
Anywho, but they are very happy with themselves as they begin to discuss their plans, and they're a bit dismissive of Tarmac and kind of openly mocking him for being a fool. However, they pay him his money as he requested, and as Tarmac asks them what exactly the plan is here, they tell him that he's too stupid to understand, but that he can consider it a big boom box with an extra big boom. And so that's where Tarmac leaves, and this is I think when we cut back and Edwin Alva begins to explain to Static and the rest exactly what this nuclear reactor does, and that it could theoretically be a source of endless energy. Okay, so it's the thing from Spider-Man 2, I guess. It's gonna make a big sun or something, but also it might blow up. So once again, Gear and Rubber Band Man and Static are on the lookout for the rest of it, Gear is using Backpack to scan for different research satellites to find any data that might help figure that out. And Gear's really frustrated by how a lot of this comes down to Rubber Band Man hesitating and not hitting the button in time to trap Tarmac there. And Virgil seems to be piecing things together a little bit more here, and that there's definitely something going on beyond just a freeze up or a hesitation. Something more is going on with Adam. And from there, we cut away to the, I guess, like Central City, I guess Dakota also has a villain bar, as we see Tarmac showing up. He's playing pool. We see Shiv, Puff, and Onyx all at the bar. And who should come in, as Cal alluded to, the real hero of the story, Carmandillo is here.
Say, Tarmac, spot me a few bucks for some nachos.
What the heck? I just made a big score. I lifted that fusion engine from Alva.
No. What'd you get?
A cool $1,000.
Well, ain't you seen the news? Alva's offering $1 million to return that thing, asphalt for brains. No, wait, I'll give you $1 to go rob Fort Knox for me.
Tarmac's a little bit frustrated by the mocking, and the other villains begin to kind of join in and laughing at him. So he melts the top of a ceiling fan and sticks Carmandillo to it. And as Carmandillo is left spinning on top, Tarmac is quite furious and decides that he's going to head back to his former employer, Specs and Trapper, and give them a piece of his mind, so to speak. And from there, we cut back to Adam's house, where he's sulking a little bit. He's playing piano. And as Static enters, he cracks a little joke, and here's sort of where they have their little heart-to-heart, and we get the reveal that Adam, in fact, has dyslexia. So it's not that he can't read; it's that he has a disorder that sort of makes it very difficult for him.
Look at this. It's a review of your new CD.
I don't read my reviews.
Don't? Or can't?
Look, I'm dyslexic, all right? They put me in a special learning program. They showed me techniques.
Like what?
A lot of stuff. You change words into something you can feel instead of look at, but it takes patience. I could never sit still as a kid.
So you dropped out of the program?
I felt dumb. Don't tell anybody about this, okay?
You're not dumb. Look what you've made of yourself. A hero, a famous musician, but
I messed up.
I was gonna say, but you can't give in. You said you can read, it just takes some work. Do the work.
Everything all right here?
Yeah, great.
What do you got?
Backpack's found a huge energy reading coming from Westwood Flats.
Sweet.
Here pokes his head in the window and points out that Backpack's detecting a huge energy reading over in the Westwood Flats neighborhood, which we find out is sort of this abandoned kind of rundown area, a lot of condemned building. And as they head in there to try to figure out what's going on, we cut back to Specs and Trapper, who are once again confronted by their former associate Tarmac.
That's right. Yeah, and so Tarmac is back now that he realized he's been played a fool. He's insisting that he's not dumb and that he's going to take back this machine from Mr. Specs and Mr. Trapper. They are a little perturbed that he's there. They have their weapons, their Specs and their glove weapons that they had in prior episodes now, and they do their best as Tarmac tries to just start destroying things and taking the lab apart. They do their best to restrain him. The best that they can do is kind of keep him at bay, which unfortunately, through the mayhem of trying to keep him at bay, Specs tries to shoot him with his glasses, and Tarmac does the We'll talk about his power set. His power set is just whatever it needs to be. He does the thing that like he does the Clayface thing where he makes himself like a giant hole in the middle of him, so the shot goes through him and hits the machine, which causes everything to start shutting down and our reactor to start going off. So at that point, they're doing their best to try and start shutting down the machines around it so that there isn't a reactor meltdown. Static, Richie, and Rubber Band Man, as you mentioned, are out trying to find the location of the reactor using the machines that Alva gave them. And Backpack is on the case as they're finding different things. They go to this neighborhood where there's a bunch of rundown buildings, and once again, unfortunately, Rubber Band Man's dyslexia leads to additional concern and conflagration as he walks into a building with a sign that says "Danger Condemned" to search perhaps for the reactor. And in the middle of that, the reactor, the damage that Tarmac has done to the machine causes many earthquakes to happen in and around the area, which causes this condemned building to begin to collapse. Static is able to protect him and get Rubber Band Man out before the entire building collapses. But we do have another moment where Gear, at this point, who continues to not be in on the secret, berates Rubber Band Man for walking into the building and putting himself in danger, asking him if he even read the sign. So as we learn, Rubber Band Man is still not quite ready to talk about him suffering with dyslexia. Gear once again enlists Backpack to try and find, now that they know that the reactor is close enough to cause an earthquake. Backpack is able to locate and take them to the lab, where they stumble upon Trapper and Specs still trying to hold Tarmac at bay as things are going crazy in and around them. Specs and Trapper decides to turn their attention at this point to Static, Gear, and Rubber Band Man in an attempt to stop them. This frees up Tarmac to continue his rampage and his ultimate collection of the fusion reactor, which he picks up and takes out. Meanwhile, the heroes are able to quickly disperse of Trapper and Specs as Static once again fries their glasses and gloves. So they're just kind of normal humans at that point, normal smart Alex. So they're able to disperse with them. But meanwhile, Tarmac has escaped with the reactor. Rubber Band Man is in pursuit, though, as he pulls out Alva's mobile device that he gave him, and he's able to track the reactor to the docks, and he's able to knock Tarmac into the water, which I guess is, again, a lot of similarities here between other characters. Water is his ultimate demise. This appears to freeze him or cool him down enough where he's no longer a threat. So it's just Rubber Band Man and the reactor, which, wouldn't you know it, there's a time count. It's 2 minutes to a complete meltdown, and it's up to Rubber Band Man, who has only the instructions from Alva's machine in his hand that he is forced to read in order to shut down the reactor before it completely melts down. So we realize at this point that we cut back to Static and Gear, who have taken care of Specs and Trapper, and they realize that Rubber Band Man is out on his own. And Gear mentions that it's not going to be a problem for him. He has the machine. He has to read. He'll be able to read the instructions. To which a panic Static quickly begins pursuing where the location of the reactor is, thanks to Backpack. Gear sort of quizzically asks why Static is so concerned if Rubber Band Man has the instructions and can read it. Static kind of gives a non-answer, which kind of leads Gear to realize that maybe Rubber Band Man does have issues with reading, although it's not clear that whether or not he completely understands what's going on. But they're in hot pursuit. Meanwhile, we cut back to Rubber Band Man.
Gear, we need a location.
Got it. The docks.
Core. Remove smooth oval magnetic core.
Let's hope Rubber Band Man gets there in time to shut it down. He's got the instructions on him, right? Static?
Rotate. Aluminum. Collar. Oh man, what's this? 16 letters. Too long for clockwise. It's gotta say counterclockwise.
Shutdown complete.
Don't worry, I've got the shutdown procedure.
Here, don't forget step 3.
How'd you?
I did the work.
He's able to disassemble the bomb completely, making sure that it doesn't go off, or the reactor, making sure that it doesn't go off, and thus saving Dakota. And Static asks him how he did it, and he repeats back to Static what Static told him to do, which is he did the work. And then in our little postscript sort of infotainment scene, final scene of the episode, we have kind of a PSA type moment where Static and Rubber Band Man break the fourth wall and begin talking to the viewers about dyslexia, talking about specifically some famous people, some notable people that also suffered from dyslexia, and encouragement from anyone watching that may be suffering from the same with the same issue to speak to a teacher or to a parent about their that they're suffering from it so that they can get help, and encouraging them, noting that over 25 million Americans suffer with some sort of reading difficulty and that they're not alone in it. So that's where we wrap things up here with the call for everyone to learn to read. And that's the end of the episode. Man. This is an episode, Liam.
There's a lot going on, and we've talked about like whatever, I think we've mostly enjoyed the previous, as we kind of dubbed them, the very special episodes of Static, the PSA episodes, even if they can be a little heavy-handed. Hey, it's a show for kids, you want the message to be clear. So this one, it's like it's almost like the dyslexia stuff kind of is a last minute addition. Like, I mean, it is played throughout the episode, but it's so racked up, and like it's Specs and Trapper and this other guy, Tarmac, and Edwin Alva's back. And like there's a lot of moving parts, and you gotta have the superheroes punching somebody, so you gotta have these action sequences. But what I feel like it's missing is the one, I think, to have Adam Rubber Band Man more centered in the story, because a lot of it is like Static and Gear being like, what's wrong with this guy? And then you finally get the reveal late in the episode of that he has dyslexia, and he gets the pep talk from Static. But I feel like, I don't know, I feel like we're missing it. Like that should have been more of the central focus. Less time, maybe, as happy as we both were to see Carmen Dillo return, maybe less time spent with Tarmac and the bad guys, and more time with Adam kind of struggling with that. I mean, the fact that he's concealing it, we see that he's embarrassed by it. He's concealing it from Sharon. He's not, he's concealing it from Static and Gear. And it's not only is it a source of embarrassment for him, it's also, endangering him and his fellow heroes. He goes into an abandoned building, not realizing that it's condemned and about to collapse. So it's like, there's an interesting idea here. And I feel like maybe instead of and again, I get it, you want to hammer home the message at the end, so you have the fourth wall breaking. Again, maybe it would have been more interesting if like the final scene was him either like in an interview, or even just like him sitting in his apartment with Sharon, Virgil, and Richie, just like announcing to all of them that, hey, I have this disability, but I'm still practicing, and I'm still getting better at my techniques and everything. And you have like, let him have a heart to heart with the important people in his lives, and you let that be a way to talk to the audience without it, being a literal like fourth wall break thing. But yeah, as it stands, it's like Gear's kind of a jerk in this episode. Again, he doesn't know what's going on, but then it's never really made clear if he ever is made aware of it.
Right.
So it feels like the message should ultimately be don't hide this, right? That is kind of the idea. Is like there are places you can go for help. And so like I feel like there needed to be more of a moment where, at least at the end, if nothing else, where Adam is willingly now sharing with Sharon, with Richie, with everybody, that he has this disability, and and the work he's putting in to try to combat it. Like I think that's a better or more interesting ending than just being like, by the way, ask your teacher. I think that's almost kind of a disservice to the story, even though it is. I understand wanting to have a more direct moral at the end of this one, but I feel like you could have done that and done it within the context of the episode and sort of the drama you set up in the first half with him trying to hide it from Gear and from Sharon.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on that. I think we've seen the good and the maybe not as good versions of these PSA infotainment episodes in Static. Before we went on the air, we were kind of trying to go through each of them and recall. But the Richie's Dad is a Racist episode. Sons of the Father is one that I think is handled well. I think the episode, the Christmas episode dealing with the young lady who's experiencing homelessness I think that's a good episode. I think the gun episode, the kid brings a gun to school, and then this one are probably on a lower tier in my opinion. This episode could have just been interesting, I think, on its own. I think introducing a character that has that suffers with dyslexia, and we tried to kind of maybe understand why this was the one that was selected too as the reason. I don't know if there was somebody that was working on the show that felt particularly passionate about this. Obviously reading is like one of those core things that is important to education here in the US. And, with the stats that they're giving at the end with 25 million people having some sort of issue with, or an inability to read well is certainly, that's important. But it does feel like kind of when you're looking at the other ones that they picked, this one kind of just feels a little bit out of left field and, maybe feels like something you would see on, I don't know, Arthur the Aardvark show or something like that versus the Static Shock superhero show. So it was a little bit of an odd choice. I feel like, the story coming down to him having to kind of will his way and the pressure being on him to, quote unquote, do the work here is fine. But I think it also is a weird message to send to kids. It's like, well, you need to know how to read just in case you ever have to disassemble a bomb. It kind of feels like what the message is that we're told here. It's like, well, it's much more important than that. Obviously reading unlocks a lot of different things. So, I don't know. I think it's okay. I think it just feels like they had a script and they kind of worked this dyslexia stuff into it. And then the entire resolution, as you mentioned, Richie being a jerk to Rubber Band Man for 3/4 of the episode and basically being on the same side as Alva. Alva is also a jerk to him about it. Mm-hmm. And, us not even getting the point where he can kind of proudly admit to other people. I think that maybe would have changed it at the end if we have him having this conversation with Sharon and Richie and maybe a couple of other people about, or being a spokesman. Like Rubber Band Man is now doing PSAs in Dakota telling other kids like, hey, I suffer from dyslexia. I want to encourage people to get out there and do the work like that, make that his tagline or whatever. And see a resolution in universe here that's a little bit more or a little less like on the nose. We're breaking the fourth wall and going to tell the kids that are watching. I think could have been a little bit a little bit better execution. But it's a fine episode. Otherwise, it's pretty paint by numbers. It feels like, we have Alva who's there. We have Specs and Trapper returning. All three characters that have been in multiple seasons here that kind of feel pretty big. And then we have another Bang Baby of the Week that's thrown in there that his powers are just kind of derivative of a couple of other villains that we know. So it does feels almost like those are all wasted in a way. Could have been anybody. It feels like that could have been. It really could have been any story that involved this. It didn't have to be these guys. So, So it's okay. I think I was a little disappointed based on, as we talked about, some of the other episodes that have handled this with a little bit more tact. I felt a little bit less, a little bit less like we were taking a break from the action here for an important message. So, I ended up giving Plot a 4 out of 10, for those reasons. What about you?
Yeah, I just went 1 point higher. I stuck it a 5 out of 10. I think it's still I don't greatly disagree with you, but yeah, I think it's a nice enough episode. I do like the heart to heart that Virgil and Adam, Rubber Band Man, have together. Like I said, I wish that was more the focus of the episode, and that there was more of a resolution to him keeping it to himself. I feel like that would have been a better way to go. But we started. I do also like, and maybe we'll talk more about this in visuals, but Specs and Trapper finally have like gadgets that make sense for their like last time they had like mech suits that could like, one of them could like speed up and slow people down, and then the other guy just had like a thing that shot like ice and fire out of his face or something.
Right.
So this time, like, Specs has actual specs, and Trapper has like these gauntlets that shoot out some kind of like mucus ropes that tie somebody up. So he's trapping people. So at least that tracks better in this one. So like I said, I like all these characters. I like when Edwin Alva pops up. It's just like, yeah, that doesn't really feel like we needed them and Alva and this Tarmac guy all in one episode. It gets a little crowded by the end, especially when you have three heroes on the other side. So yeah, not the best outing, but certainly not the worst we've seen either.
Absolutely. All right, Liam, let's move on to our next category of the day, which is going to be animation and visuals. Once again, animation done by Coco and Dong Yang. This one is going to be, for me, the strongest category of the week when it comes down to our scores here. I think visually, you do get a lot of great stuff here. Even as we mentioned, so Tarmac, despite him feeling derivative, is an existing character from the Milestone comics, so he wasn't created for this. I guess you know what? All comics seem to be eventually derivative, or have a character that's derivative or seems derivative of somebody else. So yeah, it's imitation is the sincerest form of flattery and all that stuff. So the fact that he's a living, I think his introduction, we'll maybe talk about that in voice acting, is pretty funny. The line that he gets about being the toughest road you'll ever drive on, or whatever it is, really, really funny.
Yeah.
But he looks interesting. He kind of looks like, to me, like, I almost wish this is what Magma would have looked like, because he more resembles the Thing from the Fantastic Four, because he's got like the pants and he feels more like a rock creature than Magma does. And I understand.
Well, this leads me to my brand new crackpot DCAU fan theory that I wanted to bring out, since we're talking about this. He resembles Magma pretty strongly. So my theory, until proven otherwise, because we don't know a lot about the experiment that the Terrific Trio, other than it involved some kind of radiation or something.
Right.
So what if it was also whatever they were irradiating? What if it involved the Bang Baby gas in some way? Or Alva Industries was somewhere involved in that that experiment some way, whatever future subsidiary of Alva Industries. And maybe there's a maybe there's a static connection, and somehow the Bang Baby gas or this guy's DNA was somehow involved in what turned magma into magma. And I mean, Bang Baby gas, Freon turns into a literal gas. I mean, she turns into ice, not into purple superpower gas, but still, I'm just like, there's something here. It's like poetry, it rhymes, as George Lucas once said. So like, I think that's my new canon until proven otherwise theory, is that somewhere in the Terrific Trio's origin, there's some purple Bang Baby gas somewhere mixed in with the cosmic rays or whatever that turned them into the Terrific Trio.
Well, canon until proven otherwise, as we say. But I do really enjoy the way that the character looks. He's, obviously as we mentioned, visually he does look a little bit like magma, but he is kind of that black, dark tar looking asphalt type color. But he's got these cracks in between him that are this bright red color, and then he's got like a grayish highlight color to him that makes him kind of stand out against the dark backgrounds.
I like that he has one red line that goes across his face that makes him look like he has a mustache.
That is pretty neat. Yeah, he is a little more expressive, I would say, than Magma. Magma just kind of has that same look on his face throughout that episode. But Tarmac gets to be a little bit more expressive and emote a little bit more for sure. So yeah, Tarmac, I think, is the highlight visually. He changes his hands into hammers. We said he does the thing where he kind of like turns himself into a donut to avoid the shot from Specs. He's a big lumbering dude. Even at the end when he's thrown into the water, you can kind of hear him begin to like freeze up, and it starts to like slowly crawl up the body. We don't see him completely harden completely, but you do see that the water doing its damage to him. Never know when to insert sound design, so I'll just, while we're talking about Tarmac here, I will say I like the fact that when he walked, he sounded extremely heavy also. Like he sounded like crumbling rock every time he walked. And even there's like a voice effect that they put on his voice that just gives him this gravelly almost, I dare say, sounding voice that really, really, really drives home the fact that this guy is like the embodiment of the street.
Yeah, no, he's a lot of fun. Like you said, it's definitely one of those characters who it feels like his powers are whatever the script calls for them to be in any given scene, for sure. But still a lot of fun, and yeah, they get pretty creative. I like watching him kind of play King Kong and swatting all the flying drones out of the air in the first scene in the lab, and then when they do the bit where Rubber Band Man kind of expands himself and wraps all around him like a blanket, and then he heats up and you see the steam coming off of Rubber Band Man's suit. I think that's pretty cool as well. So yeah, they do a lot of cool visual tricks with him that make him a lot of fun. And then even at the end when he's thrown into the water, and like you can see again all the kind of the steam and the water around it kind of bubbling, like he's that's a pretty cool gag. So I think he's definitely a fun visual villain for sure.
Yeah, I agree. As far as other visuals we talked about, you already mentioned the Mr. Trapper, Mr. Specs new tools that they get. Those are pretty fun to see them utilize those in a way that kind of makes a little more sense for their characters. Rubber Band Man, anytime that he's involved in an episode, it's always fun. We get Stretchy Guy just doing Stretchy Guy things. You mentioned when we were doing our recap, he gets to do the shelter in place, like tent type thing where he protects Static and Gear from crumbling buildings, and turns himself into a ball a couple of times and bounces around. I think that's like his trademark thing. I feel like
for sure.
He gets to turn himself basically into 2D man as he squeezes into this like little crack to get into the abandoned building or the condemned building also. And then there's some great stuff. I love the bit also where I think it's at the beginning where Richie and Static are talking, and he just kind of puts his head back in. He stretches his neck back out to poke his head back into the apartment to talk to them. So I really enjoyed that too. There's some really good showcase for his powers I feel like, again, it's an underutilized power that we didn't get a whole ton of use of, because we don't ever get an episode featuring Plastic Man. The Elongated Man is used sparingly. So I think the most we get of a stretchy guy, to me, it has to be Rubber Band Man, I feel like, throughout the series. So
yeah, as far as sheer quantity, I think he's got to beat. You know what? Jon Stewart's right. We didn't need 2 stretchy guys. We needed 3. So Rubber Band Man should have been in the Justice League too. But I digress here. But no, I think that's really fun. The bit where, as you mentioned, when the building is collapsing and Static, like, he lifts up like a small pipe through the window, and then Rubber Band Man goes and squeezes through the pipe, kind of uses it like a slide to slide out of the building, is a neat gag as well. So and even the way they show him kind of visualizing the words on his arm as sort of a visual aid for how he is using those techniques of his reading as his reading learning is fun too. So yeah, they do a lot of cool stuff with him. And then it's funny because I had put this in my notes, and then I saw apparently this is a popular theory, at least popular enough that it made it to the DCAU wiki as well. But Specs, so he's firing lasers out of his eyes, and he also happens to have like the same hair and kind of general jawline of the Scott Summers design from X-Men Evolution, which was also airing on Kids WB at this time when Static was airing. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's like, maybe it's a coincidence, but him having that hair and shooting lasers out of his eyes, I was like, oh, he looks like Scott from or Cyclops from X-Men Evolution, which we previously reviewed an episode on for an April Fool's thing a couple years ago. So it's like that's a maybe a little quiet shout out. We talked about the Marvel homages that would show up from time to time in the DCAU, and this might be another little stealthy one to one of their fellow Kids WB shows at the time.
Yeah, that is pretty funny. Good thing that I wouldn't have noticed without the DCAU wiki. See, there are good things that do come from the DCAU wiki. Just kidding. Not disparaging the good name of the DCAU wiki and the wonderful people that invest their time and energy in writing those articles. So, that is a fun little trivia note there. For that one. But as far as visuals are concerned, like I said, I think this one, as far as categories for the day, probably takes the cake. Didn't even get to talk about the return of Carmen Dillo, who you mentioned, like, every city, Central City has their bar. I think the Stacked Deck is technically Gotham's villain bar. So I think it is a thing. Like, every city has a place where all of the villains go and they play poker and shoot pool and just hang out. And Carmen Dillo, ladies and gentlemen, if you're not familiar, he deserved better. He deserved more. He is the most entertaining character outside of our lead heroes, I feel like, a lot of times in the show, and really deserved his own vehicle. A spinoff of Carmen Dillo would be my pitch to David Zaslav if I got a meeting with him next week. I'm like, listen, there's a guy, he's in this universe, and he's an armadillo man, and he's just the best. So
didn't we previously pitch like the Zoo Crew or whatever with him and Grodd and Man-Bat and whoever else? Like, there's Cheetah. There's so many heroes. Obviously, Carmendilla would be the leader, but like, there's a lot of other supporting animal characters. Croc. There's so many that could join. That could join the Zoo Crew, or the, I don't know,
Zootopia. Wait, that's probably some sort of DreamWorks.
The mouse might sue if
that's right.
If that gets that way, but
but always great to see Carmen Dillo. There's also some other cameos there in that scene. Also, I believe we get who else is in that one? We get
Puff and Onyx, I think, or at least Onyx is, and then Shiv.
There is also, thankfully Shiv doesn't talk. That was my favorite part of Shiv. So we get to, it was fun to see a couple of the other villains there hanging out, playing playing pool and drinking on their night off. So Carmandillo, though, definitely a huge part of this episode. And ultimately, I think with all of the things that we've talked about here, everybody's powers on display, the unique looking tarmac, Carmandillo. I gave this a 7 out of 10 when it came to animation and visuals. I thought that was the strongest part here. We do have some the action sequences with Tarmac fighting, and then multiple characters kind of fighting in the fight sequences. We've talked about that, how by the time they got to Justice League, they kind of had done enough of those fight sequences where you have multiple characters in different places interacting. But that's always, even then, was a difficult thing. So this one was I took note that they had characters pairing off and fighting each other and doing all that. So sometimes hard to keep track of that with multiple villains and multiple heroes all in the same sequence. So 7 out of 10 for me. What about you?
Nice. Yeah, I just went 1 point higher, 8 out of 10. So I really enjoyed the visuals of this one, and I know we've seen the newer Rubber Band Man suit at least once or twice before, but I don't know, it struck me in this one that I liked it, even though it's less. You would think it'd be less visual interesting because his old suit had like the hood and like the gray fins or whatever on top of it, but I actually think this like kind of minimalist, just like the purple suit with like the gray belt and the boots and everything is I think it actually works with like the purple highlight. And also it kind of works because obviously we know him and Ebon are brothers, so it's like vaguely Ebonish as well. So it's like he's the yin to Ebon's yang perhaps. But I like the just the black suit with the purple highlights on it. I think is a good look for Rubber Band Man. Also, at one point his clothes just change into the suit. So is he just wearing one suit all the time, or how does that work? I don't know.
Don't think too hard. I don't know. Hard to... All right, Liam, let's move on to our next category, which is going to be music. And forgive me, I did not take note when you were doing our intro at the beginning. Who's responsible for our music this week?
As is quite often the case with these later season episodes, it's the team of Max Gauss and Derek Thornton. I'll be honest, I don't really have anything in my music section. A lot of the season 4 episodes, we're robbed of the lyrical static music. So other than sort of some of the action beats when they're fighting Tarmac, I didn't really pick up on a lot of music for this episode.
Yeah, there's one refrain that plays over and over again. It's definitely a synth of some kind that kind of plays. It happens in the sequence where Static and Richie and Rubber Band Man are all trying to determine, I think, discuss strategy and kind of disperse around the buildings, and then afterwards, when they're trying to determine the location, it's just kind of synthy and kind of has a familiar tune. I couldn't place what the tune was, but it definitely sounded familiar. But there's not any standout points of music that I felt were notable that that kind of blew me away or that were worth notating, other than kind of some standard fare. So for that reason, I ended up giving music a 5 out of 10. Just it's fine. It's there. It certainly adds where it needs to be to the action sequences, but nothing really stood out to me. What about you?
Yeah, I also went with a 5. Nothing spectacular, but certainly nothing wrong with it either. I do like the little bit there, and it's sort of a within the story of when after Adam is kind of screwed up the first battle. There's just a scene of him sort of playing this very soft kind of piano tune as he's kind of trying to collect his thoughts as Virgil flies in the window. I thought that was a nice touch as well, with like him using that to try to clear his head. It's just this kind of sad, somber piano tune that he's doodling away on. So that was a nice touch.
All right, Liam. Well, that will take us to our final category of the day, which is going to be our voice actors and actresses for this week. Let's go ahead and go down our list of contributors for this week. Not a huge one, but lots of familiar names, returning voice actors that have been here throughout the entire run of Static, and of course, some notable guest stars that show up from time to time with these returning guests.
Absolutely, some big guests this week returning as mentioned. We do once again have Kerrigan Mahan as Edwin Alva, as always, doing the Michael Douglas in Wall Street kind of raspy businessman voice. Not a lot of him in this episode, but good to hear him back around. And we also do briefly get Michelle Morgan as Sharon, and like I said, I kind of wish there was more interaction. I like her bouncing off of Rubber Band Man, and no pun intended. But I like I said, I feel like there was a missed opportunity to maybe have a second scene with her where he kind of comes clean to her with what's been going on. But yeah, she does a solid job as well. And then our the rest of our guest cast here, what a just a murderer's row. We have playing Specs and Trapper returning. As Specs, we have Patton Oswalt. Of course, folks would know as the stand-up comedian and podcaster, and was on the sitcom King of Queens for years, and lots of other voice acting work as well. And then, of course, he's playing along DCAU legend Michael Rosenbaum as Trapper. These guys are always fun because they're just like they get foiled every time almost immediately, but they're still so smug. And it's like, these are Silicon Valley guys. Like, these are like, they're not actually that smart, but they have this completely unearned sense of superiority to them. And it's like, talking about the Simpsons being prescient, the tech guys who keep screwing up, but think of themselves as, geniuses, and the rest of humanity as these rubes that they're using. It's like, oh, yep, Static nailed that one.
That's right. Yeah, they are spot on with these. And I love how they are absolutely demeaning to anybody and everybody. Like every episode that they're in, they're just demeaning and talk down to everybody. They're openly mocking this guy who's like twice their size and has superpowers, and they just are mocking how stupid he is, which of course is ultimately partially part of their undoing because of their hubris. But they're great in both of these roles here, playing off of one another, and really they have some good chemistry, and they're the guys that you want to see get their asses handed to them, and thankfully it happens.
Absolutely. I love the gag where Trapper is holding up Tarmac, and he does the thing where he opens up the hole in his chest to avoid taking the shot, and it damages the reactor. And all Specs goes like, well, he moved. Like,
right.
Like, he's not allowed to do that. Like, they're such kind of, they immediately panic when something goes wrong. So they're pretty fun playing off of each other. And then speaking of Tarmac, the great John DiMaggio, another legendary voice actor himself, voice of Bender on Futurama, and of course Aquaman on Batman Brave and the Bold, and about 6 trillion other voices in various cartoons over the years. He's great. Is he doing Hulk Hogan? I think he's doing a pro wrestler here at the very end.
Yeah, my thought was, before I looked at, I had no idea who was playing the voice. I knew obviously it was somebody who was talented, but I was like, did they get like Hulk Hogan to do this voice? And they just put it I feel like I would have known that if that was the case, but
right.
No, it was not the late Hulk Hogan. It was John DiMaggio just doing an over the top, intense potential 80s pro wrestler voice with his delivery here. He's great. Like I said, they do something where they put this like gravelly effect on his voice on top of it, or maybe it's just his voice. There's definitely some sort of effect though that kind of gives it some heaviness to it. But great turn from Mr. DiMaggio. I mean, every time he shows up, it's a joy. He's really great. Obviously, it's why he continues to work today and get some really great memorable acting roles here. But this one, while maybe not high on his, if you're looking at his resume, Tarmac may not be a top 50. It's certainly a fun one to recognize here on this episode.
Absolutely. And then we have our trio of heroes to talk about. We have Kadeem Hardison returning as Rubber Band Man, Jason Marsden as Gear, and Carmendillo, and of course Phil Lamar as Virgil / Static. I figured we could talk about all of them together because they are so much of the episode comes from, there's the drama of Richie kind of being frustrated by Rubber Band Man's seeming like hesitation and then sort of the side part being that Static kind of figures it out. It's funny. It's not the Brainiac guy. It's not the smart guy that figures out what's going on. It's Virgil here. Not that Virgil's an idiot, but he's the one who kind of puts two and two together. So yeah, I think the best stuff maybe in the whole episode, other than Mr. DiMaggio just having a lot of fun as Tarmac, is probably those heart to heart scenes we get between Mr. Lamar and Mr. Hardison when he's sort of explaining. I think especially when they have that scene in the apartment where he talks about how like it's made him feel stupid and he's embarrassed, and Virgil tries to give him this pep talk. I think that's some really solid stuff.
Yeah, the three of them together are really fantastic. Obviously, we get a lot of spotlight on Mr. Lamar and Mr. Marston pretty frequently here. So getting Mr. Hardison, who I don't know that we loved. Like, part of me thinks that maybe one of those episodes we were like, this isn't so great. This one, I think him being a little bit understated and timid actually plays into the role that he's playing for this episode, where he's trying to be kind of coy and trying to hide this issue that he's dealing with. So the fact that he's kind of understated and emotionless kind of plays into that, I think, pretty well for this episode. So yeah, I think our three leads here do a really strong job, carrying everything here. There's not one thing that I feel like sticks out though, other than maybe that little heart to heart scene of like a really fantastic, memorable sequence. So I ended up going with a 6 out of 10 for my voice acting. I think there's there's definitely some highlights here between Mr. DiMaggio and our leads, but nothing that really knocked my socks off. What about you?
Yeah, I gave it a 7 out of 10. I think everybody's turning in a good, and like we said, I think the highlights probably Mr. Hardison and Mr. DiMaggio really having a lot of fun, as well as some of our supporting cast. So yeah, nothing earth shattering, but a good solid job by all involved.
There we go. All right, Liam. Well, that will bring us to the end of our scores here. Totaling everything up, I end up with a 22 out of 40. So, it definitely doesn't seem like this is going to be too memorable one for me. What about for you?
Yeah, I guess we differed just about in each category just by a point, as it turns out. But I ended up giving it a 26 out of 40. So I don't think it's quite disagreement alarm worthy, because we seem to mostly be in agreement in each individual category. But yeah, as far as rewatchability goes, I mean, this is the last episode that Rubber Band Man appears in. Also Specs and Trapper and Edwin Alva, but yeah, I don't feel like it's that. Again, maybe if there had been like this big heart to heart moment where he reveals everything to Sharon or something like that, I don't know, maybe it would have been more memorable. But it doesn't really follow up. I mean, Specs and Trapper, again, even though they're always trying to like get revenge on Alva, they don't really interact in this episode either. They only really have fisticuffs with the heroes at the end and then deal with Tarmac. So Alva being there is just kind of like this weird little side effect to the thing. So not really important to any of the characters' arcs, I would say, other than Rubber Band Man's, because I guess it gives him a different wrinkle now that we know this thing about him. But that's not really, I don't really think it greatly increases the rewatchability of the episode, just because we learned that Rubber Band Man has dyslexia, even though I do think the actual handling of that stuff in the scene with Virgil and him is good.
Yeah, I think you could go with like a one thumb up for this one. It's an important character. It is the last appearances here for several of our mainstays. It has Carmandillo in it.
True.
If you're a Carmandillo completist like I am, you gotta watch this episode for him. So yeah, I think it's fine. Again, I don't think that it's. I mean, you could argue that if you want to get run the full gamut of the infotainment or the PSA episodes here. This one kind of is the fourth one in the set there. So arguments can be made here. I don't think if you're watching static episodes, I think this is an important one. If you're watching the DCAU, I think you can sit this one out. All right, Liam. Well, that will begin to wrap us up for this week's episode. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Don't forget, we would love for you to support the podcast, and we have several different ways to do so, as we talk about each and every week. Follow us on your podcast platform of choice, whether that's Apple Podcasts or Spotify or one of those ancillary podcast distributors. Subscribe to us there. If it lets you leave a review, leave a 5-star review and a little blurb. If you are listening on Apple, if you leave a little blurb, we will, and you live within the United States, we'll send you a little thank you gift for doing so, for writing a review. We thank you for those that have taken the time to do that already. Don't forget also, we are on YouTube. If you search YouTube for DCAU Review Podcast, you'll be able to find our channel there. We invite you to subscribe to that. Or if you're listening on one of those other podcast apps, just check out the show notes and subscribe to us there. Even if you don't consume your DCAU review via YouTube, it helps us if you subscribe there. And that way we can eventually work our way up to a nice little vanity link there and point people to YouTube to subscribe to our podcast there. You can also follow us on social media at DCAU Review on all platforms. Instagram, Twitter, X are our most active platforms of usage, but we are of course on some of those other ones as well, as we already mentioned, YouTube, as well as Threads and Facebook, although those are not the best ways to get a hold of us. Commenting or tweeting at us are the most effective ways, and certainly will get the quickest response from us if you do, or perhaps you would like to get our attention a little bit quicker. You know what Michael Scott did? He just walked into the room and said money. And, that's a way to get our attention as well. So if you join us at buymeacoffee.com/DCAU review and become a supporter, whether it be a one-time supporter or like one of our monthly supporters, Zach, who has a question that he sent us this week. Zach is a monthly supporter. You can join him and you can get your question answered next week if you join us at that level and submit a question at the super friend level. Zach has a question for this week's static episode. He says, at the end, when Rubber Band Man throws Tarmac into the water and it neutralizes him, or at least his abilities, do you think he sank to the bottom of the harbor, or do you think he floats when immobilized? Have a great week. Thanks, Zach. I told you at the top of the show, Liam, I love the questions that we get from our supporters because they can be super nerdy like this, where we're just speculating on this monster rock man, whether or not he's floating or sinking in the Dakota Harbor, or it can be a little more serious or more in depth here. But Zach, it's a great question. I say he sinks because he sounds pretty heavy when he's running around through most of these scenes here, Liam. But if he sinks, then we're just going to assume that he can't breathe underwater. So he dead?
I don't. Yeah, I guess. I mean, yeah, he's made of rocks, so like there aren't a lot of like floating rocks to my to my knowledge. So I mean, we can hope that that maybe Static and Gear fished him out of the harbor before he drowned, but didn't seem like anybody was in a great hurry to collect him from the harbor.
Unless bigger fish to fry, you know?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, the fish were probably literally frying in the water because he gives off so much heat. But yeah, they may have in fact left him. We're gonna hope that they. Although we did just cover that episode with the guy with like the wrist gauntlet, and they just basically were cracking jokes about how this guy is trapped in time forever now. So. We are starting to get a pattern, I feel like, in the later Static seasons of them being a bit more cavalier about the surviving of these new supervillains they're meeting. So we'll perhaps we'll never know, but we would certainly like to think that that was not a watery grave for Mr. Tarmac, but he never comes back. So as we always say, if that's Zach's theory, then perhaps canon until proven otherwise.
There we go. All right, Liam, well, that will begin to wrap us up for this week's episode. We will continue next week with yet another review of Static Shock as we continue to count down to the very last episodes here of Static. Liam, another Season 4 episode we'll be covering next week. Let's talk about it with a little preview for the episode we'll be reviewing.
That's right. We have a couple of villains coming back next week in the episode Wet and Wild. How's this going to work? One guy's a fire guy. We got Hot Streak back, and he's hanging out with Aqua Maria, who's a water girl. How's that going to work? How could that possibly work out? I guess we'll find out next week when we review Wet and Wild.
There we go. Looking forward to
that phrase without putting Static Shock in it. I think you might get
Put DCAU, rough. Static Shock.
You might,
episode.
Protect yourself. Turn
right.
Safe Search on before you do
right.
that.
Good advice here. Fun and educational here. Cannot wait, Liam. It's going to be a great one. But until then, I'm Cal.
And I'm Liam.
And we will talk to you on the next episode of the DCAU.
Adios.